Welcome to Outliers, a show about the lifestyle and culture of action sports. I'm your host, Molly Hawkins, snowboarder, action sports marketer, and minority on so many levels as a female in a leadership role in the action sports industry. Today we're going to be talking about women in action sports. What is the current state? What does the future look like? And what can we all do to help create opportunity for women? Some of you may be more active as athletes or perhaps maybe just participants, maybe you even work in the industry. So you may know what I'm talking about. 10 years ago, it was pretty hard to find snowboard gear for my stature, that was women specific, that met my needs. I was wearing guy stuff. Frankly, I kind of liked the guy stuff that was available at that time. But now it's crazy to see how far we've come, but there's still a lot of opportunity to continue to grow that market. If you look at Title IX, you go back to the 70s, women have come a long way. 1 in 27 girls actually participated in high school sports. Now it's more like 1 in 2 women are participating in high school sports. So if you look at, dig way back and look at how far we've come, I know there's so much more room to grow. And, that's why I get excited about this topic, being a female, looking at how I can enrich my participation in snowboarding, create opportunities for other women to work in this industry. So today, to shed some light on the subject, I have brought in Kim Woozy. She's a filmer, a photographer, owner of MAHFIA.com. That's MAHFIA.com. Most of you probably have yet to hear about MAHFIA.com, but you will soon, no doubt. Recently, Kim was featured in Transworld magazine, on Grind TV, and a number of industry publications. As well, she was featured on a TED Talk recently. Welcome to the show, Kim. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Molly.
Awesome. I'm glad to have you here. You are a curator of all things content when it comes to female action sports.
Yes, I'd like to think so.
Tell everybody a little bit about MAHFIA.com. How did you dream this up?
MAHFIA started back in 2010, but I had been working in the skateboarding industry for about 3 years already, and I was doing marketing at Osiris, and at the time they had launched a girls brand. So I was getting my feet wet and just learning kind of the ins and outs of marketing, in the action sports industry. And I started to work with a lot of female riders, skate, snow, surf, and wake. And at the time, that was kind of, when magazines were transitioning, we saw probably, I can't even name the number of magazines that, were doing well and just kind of had to fold at the time. So, we were just always talking about how it'd be awesome if there was, a media outlet that showcased girls action sports in the way that we wanted to see it. And so after my time at Osiris, I kind of, got together with some of the girls. And we decided, okay, let's create a media outlet, but let's make it digital. So that's kind of where it all came about. And my background is video. So that's what I went to school for. And I was excited to get back to it. So it was kind of an interesting time period because there wasn't a lot of like webisodes or web series yet back then. It was more just like online magazines and blogs. So we started out as a website, sort of like an online magazine. And then over the years, we've, transitioned into focusing more on our actual videos. And now pretty much our site is pretty much all video. So we're focusing all the content on that. So yeah.
What was I remember back when people were trying to transition from the long form DVDs and film projects to webisodes. And, I even tried to get behind some at one of the companies that I was working at, and people were like, you're crazy. It's not going to work. It's a waste of money. What were people's responses to, your proposition and what you were trying to put out there?
I think it was hard for people to understand at the time. I think there was kind of a shorter lived period where online magazines made sense. And that was when people were, understood like, okay, we'll buy, banner space and all that. And then that sort of just was quite like short-lived, because I think, with the introduction of like, mobile phones and smartphones and just more kids with like laptops and tablets and whatnot, it kind of transitioned away from just your traditional online magazine or website, and you really just had to focus on, original content. So it was tough in the beginning. We even struggled to figure out, what we wanted to do. So it was funny because in the beginning, a lot of people were like, so what is MAHFIA? And I was like, well, it's kind of a lot of things. We're figuring it out.
Because it didn't exist then, so you're kind of building it from the
Yeah,
ground up.
exactly. A lot of people thought we were like a t-shirt company, which is funny because we've like never sold any t-shirts, but
Maybe you should.
yeah, I know, right? So yeah, I think we were figuring it out. Things were changing, like technology was changing. I mean, even like if I think about now, like back in 2009 or 2010, like not everyone had an iPhone, so it wasn't like watching videos on your phone was a thing. And now like a lot of people do that. So yeah, it was a little bit, a lot of just figuring out, but we always kind of had the attitude of like, okay, let's just adapt to what we see works, and where, it's all about like what the kids are doing nowadays, it's like, so, okay, are the kids watching videos on their phones? Like,
Right.
okay, then we gotta, that's where we want to focus our energy. So it's constantly changing, but yeah, we're kind of just always trying to adapt to what we think is going to be the next, the next step, or the way to get our stories out there.
So you have the platform, you have the attention of large companies. You've worked with the likes of, I think, who were you working with? You went out to China recently?
We were actually in Japan, and one of our awesome partners that we started working with earlier this year is Penny Skateboards. So they're awesome to work with because they have a large female audience as well. A lot of their customers are girls, and it's a fun brand because they're really trying to, it's all about increasing participation. So it's like the kid that probably, he or she doesn't skateboard, and that's her first, introduction into, action sports. So it's kind of cool because it's, they're bright and they're colorful and they're fun, and, they're like fashionable too. So it's really it's like the brand that's for everyone. It's not super core and cool, and it's not about like exclusivity. It's just about like, look, if you have fun, riding this board down the street, then do it, like go for it. It's fun and it's for everyone. So we started working with them, and it's been great. They pretty much, came to us and they were like, we're stoked on what you guys are doing, and we want you to continue to do what it is you do. So it's different because in the past we've done a lot of, freelance work or commercial work, and it's pretty much just like, we're a video production company and someone needs, a promo video or an ad or something. And it was different with Penny because they were like, we don't really want to tell you what to do because we're not experts in, in the girls market. So we just want you to do what you do. And we just want to be a part of it. So that was really rad. And, basically one of our team writers, Lizzie Armanto, is one of their, they basically sponsor her. So, but it's almost more like an ambassador, not so much like a team writer.
So you're producing your own content, you're producing content for other people. Now, have you seen that, help reach more women, create more participation?
I think so. I think that, for me, like growing up, snowboarding and skateboarding and all that stuff, like I was always super pumped to see, girls in magazines, like whether it was like SG Mag or if it was like a girl in, one of the guys' mags. It always took that someone, that looks like me to be like, oh, okay, well, now I can imagine myself doing it. So I think it is important to get content of girls, riding out there so that we can increase, participation and just like keep girls that are interested in it stoked on it. Cause if a girl, decides like, oh, I'm interested in skateboarding, and, she goes to the skate park and it's just, all dudes, or she just doesn't see any other girls riding because there's not content out there, then she might just think to herself, oh, okay, like maybe it's just not for me. Like maybe
right.
this was a bad idea or something. But I think if she can constantly see new content, and that's why the internet's awesome, I think that can keep her stoked, and it can kind of keep motivating her to be like, okay, I do want to do this because I want to be like her. I want to skate like her or whatever. So yeah, I think that it's getting out there, and I get a lot of great feedback. So like probably the things that excite me the most is when I get that random email from, some girl in like some random country like Bulgaria or something, and she's like, oh, like I'm super stoked. Like I have a crew here. Like I ride, with all my friends, and that's what makes me like super stoked to keep doing what we're doing, because that's really what it's all about. Because it's, in a way, it's not mainstream culture, and for me growing up, I always felt like I was like the only girl, one of the only girls that like skated or snowboarded at my school. Like had a few friends that did it, but I always would wish there was like more girls that, I could have friends to ride with and stuff like that.
It's so funny. I've said that myself, and I hear that from all my girlfriends that I snowboard with or that I ride with now. And it's funny because it's like I know there are a lot of women out there, but it's like, where are you guys? And like growing up, it's like they were out there, but there wasn't a lot of exposure for women in the films and in the magazines, and gear. There was very little gear out there when we were coming up in it. Again, we have Kim Woozy of MAHFIA.com, that's with an H, and we are talking about the ever so important topic of women in action sports. So tell me, Kim, what do you think, what in your opinion is the biggest obstacle facing women's action sports?
Well, I think it's tough right now. The industry in general, it's a tough time for everyone. I think we're sort of at this transition period where, 5 to 10 years ago, action sports was totally its own, niche, and it wasn't mainstream, and in the past, 5 to 10 years, or even more recently, we've seen it sort of explode into the mainstream with the Olympics and just stuff on MTV and whatever. So it's transitioning, out of its own little niche like Clubhouse to, the attention of mainstream media and mainstream brands, huge corporations that now, want to be a part of it because they know that that's what the kids, are looking at and wanting to do. So it's this whole transition period. And I think it's hard for, the industry in general, for, the guy side and the girl side. But I think specifically for the women's side, if the guy's side is struggling in terms of industry, in terms of sales and core, sales and all that stuff, then of course the girls are not going to be doing well, because if they're struggling, it's like you got to keep your A team, healthy. And if you're struggling there, then, your B team is definitely not going to get any, of the extra resources. So that's always how it is. It comes down to numbers, and women's sales have always been a lesser, percentage than men's sales. So
that begs a question. Is there is there a chance that women just don't play the same way as the boys do? Do you think that physiologically, biologically, that women maybe are predisposed to desire at a different level sports, and maybe, I don't know. I feel like I've been posed with that question, and guys will say that often.
I think the thing is, like, people always try to compare, like, okay, well, I get this a lot, right? Like, they say, oh, well, we're not going to run that skate shot of this girl in this magazine because what she's doing just isn't at the level of the other tricks that are in this magazine. And which I understand, like, that makes sense if you look at it from that perspective. But I think it's totally, like, that's the wrong, I think, mentality, but that's just where they're coming from, which I understand. But that's like comparing apples and oranges. If you are looking at sale, if you are a company that like is trying to sell product to females, whether your product is unisex or you make female specific product, I think that, like, you have to look at the marketing differently, so the way that girls shop and, share and socialize their interests and, the things that they buy is different than guys. So you have to market them differently if you're a brand. And then from the media aspect, it's not about if a girl is as good as a guy. It's about what value does she have to a potential audience or potential customers.
Female shopper,
that if you're trying to reach that, if you're trying to grow, sales and numbers, and you're trying to reach new customers, then you should consider, girls in general, because that's a whole new demographic that you could be, if you're focusing on sales, and that's something that you should be looking at.
I definitely think, accessibility and attainability is huge. When I can't imagine myself doing something that, say, these athletes are doing in the magazines, I write it off, and
exactly. And that's the thing too with girls. It's like, I can't speak for everyone, but I think personally, just for me, like, it's not just about the action and the gnarly tricks and going bigger and higher and all that stuff. Cause like at the end of the day, I'm not like when I was growing up, I always knew I was like, I'm not going to be a pro, snowboarder, pro skateboarder. I just like it because it's fun and it like makes me happy. And it's like the most fun thing ever that I do, hobbies that I do with my friends. So like the stuff that I want to see, like it is awesome to see all the gnarly, crazy stuff, but also like I want to see more of the lifestyle. I'm like, okay, like if you're, a pro skateboarder, snowboarder, surfer, like what do you do in your free time? Like what's it like to travel the world? Like, getting to shred like all the best spots. Like that's the stuff that I'm more interested in. And I think it's harder. What back then it was harder for guys to understand, some of the dudes in our industry to understand how to market girls because it's just different. Marketing guys is really, there's a formula, it's like who's doing what trick and who's progressing and who's winning what contest and who has the most epic, film part. But it's totally different with girls. And I think that when the areas where I saw success for the girls, market and girls brands was when they had a girl who did the sports kind of, helping to give input or calling the shots. Cause then they ultimately know exactly what girls want to see because that they're the girl, and when the marketing's authentic, like it works, I feel.
So instead of talking at women from a male perspective, you're saying that some of the brands that were killing it, doing it well, were actually they had women behind calling the shots.
They either had women, they had a women's marketing manager who knew like maybe she snowboarded or skateboarded, or even from the design aspect. Like one of the things that I remember specifically was um, just it's so simple that I just feel like it's a bridge that it just wasn't there and it needed to be built. And I was hoping, like I saw the potential for that bridge to be built. So I made it happen. But even here's a really small example was like back when I worked at Osiris, the designer, the women's footwear designer was a really good friend of mine. And she was doing, the colors and the materials of the shoes. And she went to FITM, so she was like a fashion background, and she was amazing. Like she's an amazing artist, and she would come up with awesome stuff. But when it came to the skate shoes, I was working directly with one of our team riders, and she was like, hey, if you throw, a gum sole on the bottom of this model, like I can actually skate in this girl's shoe because it's grippier. But if it's just some cool color, like I'll wear it because I'm stoked on it, but it won't last as long and I can't skate in it. So I was like, okay. So just bringing them two together, and every time, it was like time to work on product, like we'd have the writers come in and like talk about it. Like that helped a lot. And I think just bridging that gap was like a major thing that I just don't think like, not a lot of people maybe just don't have the ability to do that, or maybe it's just all guys at their company, so it's harder. They're trying to guess like, okay, what do girls want or what are girls like? So I don't know. I think one solution actually is that we need more like intelligent, talented, passionate girls in our industry. Like I think that's a big key, is that not maybe 5 to 10 years ago there wasn't the opportunity to have a women's marketing manager who actually snowboarded or skateboarded or surfed, because there just wasn't enough girls who were working in our industry. So that's something that I think is changing. And I think I meet tons of young girls who are like in college or about to graduate, and they're just like, I'd love to work in the action sports industry. And I'm like, great, awesome. Like we need girls like you who like love to ride, and you have the skills and the talent to like work hard and make some stuff happen. So
what else do you think? I mean, that's huge. I think getting women, access to those opportunities and kind of laying a pathway out there so that they can maybe one day work in marketing or work in development or design for any number of these action sports companies. But, what are other, factors or opportunities that you see?
I think there's a couple things that I see going on right now that's kind of like changed a lot in the past couple of years. But I think that we'll see a lot of success with some of these smaller brands that are started by women, that are specific to women, just because they're able to create the product that they know exactly what the girls out there want. So I think that it's hard for sure, but right now is probably a good time to start a company because of all the like just technology. Like it's a lot easier than it was, you know, even 5 years ago. So I see that happening and I'm stoked on that. And, you know, one good example is Meow Skateboards, who's started by my friend Lisa Whitaker, who's been a skate filmer for, you know, more than a decade now. And she's friends with all, you know, the street skaters, and none of them, they were all losing their board sponsors because there just wasn't enough budget. So none of the best street skaters in the world, like I'm talking like some of the best girls, like couldn't even get boards, you know? And so she was like, let's just start our own company. So now she started Meow, and all the writers get to like, they have tons of input on their graphics and, you know, where they want to see this going. So that's rad. And I think stuff like that will start to have a lot of success because they're making product that isn't out there and none of the other brands can do because they're just strapped right now, you know, or with budgets and stuff like that. So I think stuff like that. And then, you know, the more media, which is awesome. And, you know, I think we're not the only ones doing it. There's a lot of other girls, you know, creating their media. I know like in Europe, there's like the Lipstick Productions crew, and that's a crew of snowboarders. And they're shooting their own videos and webisodes. And it's awesome to watch because I love watching their stuff. Like I feel like I'm right there hanging out with them. Whereas I could tell if something's like shot by a guy or just it's very corporate, then there's not as much like realness to it. So I don't know, it doesn't speak to me as much. And so I think girls shooting other girls, creating their own media, like writers creating their own stuff, that's awesome. Brand started by girls. And then also the other thing that I see happening is some of these larger, you know, companies or even smaller companies, but outside of like the core of the action sports industry, they are understanding of the value of girls, and they don't have this sort of like history of like boys club mentality where they're like, no, we can't do that. It's like, no, they're like, no, we want a girl. Like, that's awesome. Like they're stoked, you know? So that's, I see that happening with some like brands that are totally not even, you know, they're just more lifestyle brands. And you know, some people might say like, oh, well, that's selling out. But honestly, like, I don't see it that way. I see like if a company who's legit and smart and like a solid company there and they see the value in girls and they want to support the girls, then I'm all for it. I'm like, that's awesome because there's so many people for so long that, you know, shut the door on a lot of these girls. So so I see that happening, you know, they're non-core brands, they're lifestyle brands or they're mainstream products or whatever it is, you know, or even like tech products. But I think that's awesome because they understand the value and there's not sort of this like ego involved. They understand that some of these girls have just as many fans as the guys, if not more, you know?
It's exciting. So. It seems like there's a lot of really great momentum out there. You know, what can women or men for that matter who are listening to the program, what can they do to help, you know, to play a part?
I think just supporting the girls, supporting the brands that really are supporting the girls and not just using them. Like, because I think a lot of brands make women's product and they'll use models or something like that, and that really isn't giving back to the industry. Like, they'll use models and they won't have team riders or they won't support anything that actually encourages like, you know, the actual sport. It's really just like a fashion thing or whatever. And I think that's kind of tragic because they're marketing the lifestyle, but then they're not actually contributing to the culture.
They're not putting that money back into the industry.
Exactly. So it's kind of, they're just like using it. And especially for girls, it's like, you're putting out this idea of like you're a surf brand or a skate brand or whatever, you know, action sports lifestyle brand. And you're really just, it's all sort of surface. You're saying, okay, well, you should buy our shorts because like surfing's cool and sexy, but then you're not putting anything back into it. Like, I think that's definitely tragic. Or you're just, you know, you have one team rider and you're flowing her some product. And then for every photo shoot, you know, you're hiring the top bikini model. So I think that might work for now for sales, just quick sales. But I think if you want to stay in it and you want to be, you know, an actual like legit company in this space, then you really have to show that like you care about girls' action sports and the progression of it. You can't just like sell product and say that you're a surf brand, but then not, you know, support female surfers. So but yeah, I think in terms of guys and girls, like, and what people can do, I think support the brands that really do support girls and aren't just sort of like using, our sports to make money. And then also, I think just I don't know, but I see it happening already. Like, I think the biggest difference is that it was just time. There's a generation now that's having kids, having daughters. These guys grew up skating and surfing and snowboarding, and now they have daughters, so they maybe the mentality they used to have or their friends used to have, this idea of like, oh, girls can't skate, or that's whatever, like, that's changing completely because they're now having daughters and they want their daughter to skate. Like, if you're a skateboarder, wouldn't you want your daughter to skate instead of like, I don't know, do whatever
Video
else that she
games.
could be
Yeah,
doing,
yeah.
So I think that's happening, and I think that's a huge factor in the change, because like we need the guy support, and we need, like, both support from the men and women. So for me, I think a lot of it's just supporting the brands that are really supporting girls. If you are a girl, then it makes sense. You should support the brands. I grew up like loving Nikita. I was like obsessed with
Oh
Nikita.
yeah,
And like that was like the one brand that was like, to me was authentically supporting like female snowboarders and other action sports. And that's why I always repped it super hard, So,
so go
so
out
yeah.
and buy products, female specific
Yep.
products. Support the companies that are making badass products for women.
Yep.
Go get a degree and bring that degree back into the industry.
Yeah, we need it's the best thing about the action sports industry. There's a lot of opportunity to do a lot of things. So if you love skateboarding or snowboarding or surfing, and maybe that you're just not cut out to be a pro rider, which like that's a small percentage. Like, guess what? You can
That's
still
most of us.
have an awesome rest of your life doing the things that you love doing growing up by working in the industry or starting your own company or working with some other awesome company, and you still get to do all those sports and you get to be around the culture, and that's amazing. And I think when I was younger, I wish someone told me. I had no idea that there was such thing as like being a team manager for a women's brand or something like that. So
none of us none of us really had access to that or knowledge of it. So.
Yeah. So now I think I see a lot of good things happening where the girls that are in it are mentoring other girls. Like we did a series. I worked with Lauren Mockin at Transworld when she was at Transworld, and we did a whole series of industry ride days and networking events. And I see that happening in different regions, which is awesome. I know you guys have like industry ladies group going on too, and we're working on something with Group Y for next year.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. I think it just takes a lot the girls who are in it to like be open-minded and like talk to the other girls at the other companies and be friends with them, because you'll learn a lot. And it's like we have to work together. We can't you can't have this like competitive attitude, whereas like I'm better than you type of thing. Like that's not beneficial to anyone really. And like if we want to continue to grow and progress our industry and our culture in the way that we want it to, like we have to be active in terms of like saying what you really feel and doing things like proactively get out there and make things happen, whether that's like your own events, your own brand, or just like networking with other girls, or just whatever it is that you're passionate about. Like I think you just got to go for it, and that'll help everyone sort of come together, and just like amazing things will happen. I already see that happening too, which is great. So it's exciting.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. Actually,
of course. No, thank you for having me. I'm stoked.
Before I let you sneak away, however, I want to hear about your TED Talk. I just want to know where people, myself included, could go to hear your illuminating TED Talk.
It's gonna go live next week, I believe. So it'll be on the TEDx YouTube channel, but we will for sure post it on MAHFIA, our website, mahfia.com or mahfia.tv. It's the same URL. And I believe that it'll be circulated around. I think I have a couple friends industry media outlets that will be posting it, but for sure it'll be on MAHFIA. And yeah, it was an awesome experience, and it was all volunteer based, everyone involved, so that's why it's like taking a little bit longer to get this edited and up, but yeah, it'll be up really soon. So hopefully.
And really quickly, what was the topic?
The title of my talk was "If She Can Do It, So Can I." But basically, it's almost everything we just talked about. How we just need, more media for girls to stay in these sports and can continue to be stoked. And also just in general it applies to really people outside of action sports as well. Like if I have a lot of friends that don't, ride or anything like that, but they're sorry, they have daughters and they're just like, people are looking for some sort of positive inspiration for kids nowadays because there's so much garbage out there, with just every outlet possible. Like you can consume so much media, and if you're not really trying hard, like you might just end up watching reality TV all day, and that to me is like scary because that stuff is just like it's designed exactly to make you feel a certain way and like make you want to buy stuff. It's just like it's designed exactly to make you feel a certain way and like make you want to buy stuff. I don't know. It's just like there needs to be other stuff out there for young girls who are like looking for their hobby that might, change their lives. Like there just needs to be better stuff. Like skateboarding, like awesome. Get your daughter a skateboard, like let her skateboard. Otherwise, like, I don't know, she's just gonna be spending all her time stressing on looks or whatever, so yeah, I just think that if we can get, action sports out there, I think, and I know, like it changed my life for sure. Like that's how I define myself.
Oh, I wouldn't be the same person had it not been for action sports.
Like I don't know what I would be doing, but I was like, I'm definitely not the type to, want to sit in an office all day, like wearing like a business suit. So
I may do that a lot, but I don't wear the business suit. So well, I can't wait to see that TED Talk, and if you guys have not got enough on this topic or from Kim, make sure to check that out. We'll post it on the Outliers website. Thank you again, Kim, for coming on to talk about women in action sports. Visit our website, outliersproject.com, for more on Kim, on MAHFIA.com, and on women in action sports. And tune in for more Outliers. We'll see you again soon.